Hi, it's Callie. If you have been to any of our in-person classes, then you've probably already seen some of these tabletops and lazy Susans. In today's video, I am going to go over in detail what you need to know about how we prep the wood before we did the resin pour. Okay, so we are going to start in the beginning. I'm going to run through everything in order so that it's easy to follow. And we're going to cover what you have to do to prep your wood surface and then the final coating that should be put on it if you want to pour a decorative coat of resin and have it turn out great. Now, this video can be used for any porous surface. It could be wood, it could be cement, it could be our tabletops, it could be a countertop, anything like that. You can follow this same video. Okay, so just to give you a look at a couple of the steps before we begin, we start out with just a plain piece of wood that we got from Lowe's. And then after we do the prepping and pouring, it should look like this, completely smooth. And then that's really not the final step before pouring, because you're going to have to lightly sand it so that the resin has something to grip to. So it's very smooth but dull when you begin your resin pour. Okay, side note, one of the questions that I do get asked is, can I use an acrylic paint as my seal coat? And I just want to explain the difference here. Actually, this is the coverage on one layer of acrylic paint, and it's pretty good acrylic paint. That's the coverage on the second layer, and that's not too bad. If that's what you're looking to do, if you're looking to just cover the wood, great. Now, if you're looking to get a smooth surface so that the resin decorative coat flows easily, that would be acrylic paint would be a bad idea. You can see this is one layer, and there's a lot of water in an acrylic paint. If you hear, I don't think you can see it, but you can hear how rough the surface is. Now, here is plain wood. See the difference? Once you put that acrylic paint, it sort of like pops up the wood. Also, second reason you would use a base coat epoxy or base coat resin over something like a less expensive acrylic paint is the bubbles. It's not sealing the porous surface. It's only coating it, the top layer, and when you don't seal the surface of the wood or concrete, anything that's porous, you're going to have air bubbles that are going to rise to the surface. So that is another reason why I would not recommend using something like an acrylic paint to use as the base coat of a resin project. Okay, so here again, that's the acrylic coat. You can see the imperfections in the wood, even divots, things like that. And here is the one layer of resin after it was even sanded. So now for the fun part, we're going to be applying the seal coat. We've already prepped with the sanding. So we prop them up on some cups for the epoxy to flow easily off the sides. So first we're going to just spray a little bit of the isopropyl alcohol on here and wipe it off. I usually spray a little extra for the sides, and hopefully you'll be able to see. I mean, we're getting all the dust off, but you can see there is some yellow stuff comes off there as well. So next, after doing the alcohol, it's very important not to touch the wood with your bare hands. You don't want to get any oils on it because that's one thing. Epoxy does reject oils and water. So we're going to make sure this is leveled and it's a little off. So I'm going to bring up that side a little bit. I'm going to just put this under the cup, see where we are. Should probably do it. Yep, pretty good, and that way's good. Okay, so now one other good thing about using the epoxy as a seal coat is it does self-level. So if there are any imperfections in the wood, which you can see, it's naturally knotted and it easily dented and stuff like that, it's going to even it out. Next question is, how much do you put on here? So these are, like I said, 18-inch tabletops, and I normally go for 4 ounces each, so that there's not a lot of waste. So this particular epoxy is a rapid cure, and once you put these together, it's maybe like a 2-minute mix, and you got to get them on because it starts to really thicken up rather quickly. If you are more inexperienced, maybe you want to pour a little bit more on, maybe 5 ounces per tabletop. Okay, so here we are. We got 2 minutes to stir this, and then we'll be back to show you how to apply your base coat. Okay, so I've already mixed this up, and if you're familiar with resin or epoxy, a lot of it has to do with timing and temperature. Those are the 2 main things that you have to think about. And like I said, this is a base coat epoxy that is a quick cure. So I'm going to not go over scraping and how to mix your epoxy up. We're going to get it on the table, and you'll see I always start in the center, pour out my tables, leave a little bit. I'll leave a little bit in the cup. And you're gonna see that I like to use my hands a lot. If you want, you can just use one of the putty knives or scrapers, that has notches in it, so it can evenly spread this out. So I'll just go like that to get it started. So drag it out to the side, swoop it around. I'm trying to not have the resin go over the sides yet. I don't want to waste it. So this is going to spread out on its own a little, and then it will start to move and we'll see where it needs help. So go on to the other ones. Basically do the same thing. Get it a little close to the edges. Try not to let too much go over so that it stays on top where we want it. Okay, there's some drippage. I'm trying to save the cup for around the edges then. Sometimes that happens. Okay, something else you can do if you don't have a notched scraper would be to just take your popsicle stick and, you know, spread it. Also, we have everything pretty much spread out, and we can, you know, see where we need to put the rest of this resin. Okay, so I'm going to, right now there's tension along this line that's keeping this epoxy on the top. So I'm going to help it over the edges so that it flows. Then go around, make sure everything is covered. And pop some bubbles. Okay, we're going to make sure everything's covered, you know, keep coming back to check the sides and touch up, because even though it's covered now, you know, that might look different 30 minutes from now or 5 minutes from now. And then, you know, scrape the bubbles or scrape the drips and give it a couple minutes for the air pockets from the surface to come up, and give it some heat with the torch. So I'll be back in a little bit with my torch. The bubbles are rising to the surface, and we're going to just heat them up a little bit to just pop them. A little bit of heat, what that does is pop the bubbles. It will also help with the flow because it, I guess, makes it more liquidy with heat. You definitely want to keep your torch moving at all times. Otherwise, if there's a flame on your resin, it will burn it. 100%. It will burn it. And I can see there's still little tiny micro bubbles in there. So we'll come back in 15 minutes and do that again. I came back 15 minutes later, scraped any drips that were left, and also used my torch to get rid of any bubbles that came up to the surface. I think everything looks pretty good, and So now all I have to do is wait till tomorrow, and then I'm going to get rid of the drips on the bottom and do a light sanding on the top and sides. Okay, so our epoxy has cured, and there's one last step in preparing your wood for your base coat. So this is very smooth, and the next step would be to rough it up a little bit. So you're going to take a like a 120 or a 220 grit paper and sand it up, sand the sides, just to give, you know, the resin something to grab a hold of and stay there, not peel off. I usually use something like the rougher, you know, more coarse grit to try and sand down some of these drips as well. And just have to, after that, clean it up, you know, wipe it off, and then prop it up, do a last spray and clean with isopropyl, and then you're ready to pour.